Today I'd like to share an inspiring moment with you that I had yesterday with one of my colleagues, Kim. She does the cooking, the live cooking in the supermarket. Together with her colleague Chris, they kind of take it in alternating ways. Chris, by the way, has just had lymphoma, has gone through treatment, and we've discussed his latest CT scan yesterday. You know, from one cancer buddy to the next. It's kind of cool. I can read a CT scan from somebody else from a different disease, and I'm thinking, oh, I think I can hone in on what's important there. It's very, very interesting aspect there of having read a lot of CT scan reports and all that. But that's not the point of my story. I'm sorry, I do digress. So Kim does the cooking at the supermarket that I work at, and she was preparing for a dish. So the bigger picture is that yesterday was the first day of Hanukkah, and that's a big deal for the Jewish community. So Publix have decided to throw a party there yesterday. It was amazing. Lots of food, lots of samples on offer. There was a DJ there, so it was a big party at Publix. Very, very interesting. I like that. Sadly, I had to go shopping, so I couldn't really join in, but I think the customers really enjoyed it, and everyone had a lot of fun. And it was just, you know, it was just cool. Kind of Hebrew hip hop songs and all that. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I caught her just before this started, and I was rushing around with my trolley, with my cart, going shopping, of course, for people. And she said, oh, I've got this new recipe here. We're doing something Thai today, but I have to kind of prepare for that. And I'm going to take my break now, but I'm also going to prepare for how to make this dish so, you know, that it comes out good, and it's a larger quantity. So there's a lot of stuff that she had to deal with. And I said to her, well, make sure that when you're on your break, make sure you take some time for yourself as well. That's very important too. Don't forget that. And she said, yeah, sure. No, I'll do that. But, you know, I really have to prepare for that dish. And so off she went, and the party started, and her and a colleague were doing cooking. It all smelled very good. I didn't get a chance to taste it, sadly. Later, as things calmed down a little bit, she found me in one of the aisles, I think by the ice cream section, and she said, you know, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your advice earlier. It really did something for me. And I said, oh, I don't even really remember. What advice was that? And she said, well, it's about taking some time for myself and not just focusing on the job. She said, your advice was really well received, and it made me remember that there are more important things to life than just rushing to get to another job and making sure you do a job really well. And I thought that was such a sweet thing to say, and I felt so pleased that my almost throwaway comment that came from the bottom of my heart, of course, but nevertheless it was a quick comment in a rushed environment, and it did something. So, you know, it changed her life for that day, for that moment, and it had an effect that lasted much longer than just the few seconds it took to give that advice. And I'm ever so pleased that she took it to heart and that it made a change for her. That's really nice. So I thought that was very inspiring. I like it when things like that happen, when you get feedback on something that you think, you know, this is it was coming from a good place in my heart, and it was meant to do what it really did, but you can never be sure that it does do what you hope things will do, you know what I mean? So it's nice when you get that kind of verification, that somebody tells you, do you know what, that really did something for me. And I thought that was nice, and I thought I'm going to share that with you. It goes kind of hand in hand with something, with kind of a not so nice experience that I had literally 3 weeks ago, and it's kind of a story that's not exactly finished. But there was one of my hosting customers. I have a small web hosting company, and I've got several clients there, and I've got the infrastructure, and one of those clients came to me a few years ago, and he was recommended by somebody, and he's been with me for a few years, and it was an easygoing website, and recently he had it redesigned. And in this redesign, he wanted to implement what's known as an extended validation certificate. So it's a bit of a complex beast, really. But I don't know if you're familiar with SSL certificates on websites. They make sure that there's a little lock icon displayed in your browser bar. So rather than addressing a website via http://, you're going to address it via https://. And this is possible by means of an SSL certificate, and that's something that's always a pain to implement, but it's gotten a bit easier in recent years, and it makes traffic between the web server and the person who's surfing the website encrypted, so that no one can look at what files are being transferred there. So he has currently, or he had a regular SSL certificate on his website, so that's one that literally just displays the lock. But sometimes if you go onto financial institutions and on things like YouTube, you get this kind of green bar. Depending on the browser, you get either a green bar or you get a green little lock icon displayed there, and that means that this is an extended validation certificate. And the difference between that is that anyone can order an SSL certificate, and there's no additional checks. It just sets up the certificate and your traffic is encrypted. But the extended validation certificate is something in which additional checks are being made between you and the company or the person who is sorry, don't worry. He was so interested. There was a dog blocking the road. So there's a bit of construction going on here. I have to take a different route. I hadn't anticipated that. It's a bit of a surprise to me. Sorry, I didn't know this was closed. Sorry. Anyway, so these extended validation certificates, they require additional background checks on the individual or the company who is requesting that certificate. So by that means you can click on that little green lock icon and it'll tell you, well, somebody has verified that this is actually who they say they are. So, additional background checks. What this all boils down to is it'll take longer to get one. So my client said, can you get one for me? And I said, yes, sure, I can do that. They are fairly expensive, but I can do that, no problem. And I'll let you know when it's done. It'll take about a week, maybe 2. And he says, unacceptable, can't have that, must happen literally in the next 4 seconds, can't be any other way. And I said, well, I don't really make the rules, I don't make the certificates, I just order them, and I'm relaying the company's policies to you. So it'll take a week or longer is what they're saying. So, that's probably what we're gonna have to roll with. So every day, this was while my wife and I were on vacation in Ohio a few weeks ago. And so literally every day he sends me an email, says, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? Have you heard anything? Can you give him a call? Can you drop him an email? Can you sort this out? And I said, look, it's really out of my hands, it's not something I have anything to do with. So I was getting a really negative energy vibe there from him, sadly. And I thought he was such a nice guy, but we haven't really ever worked with one another. We had transferred his website in, and that was the end of it for several years. And now I'm kind of get to seeing what his true colors are, really. He was a recommendation from another client, that's why I took him on. And in the end, it boiled down to the fact that he said, if you can't sort this out, give me a refund and I'll try and source a certificate myself. So I was thinking, okay, since you brought up the refund story, I'm thinking perhaps you should do that. And while you're at it, perhaps you should get that certificate from a different hosting provider and host your website there. If it's not good enough what I'm doing, and I'm a nice, easygoing, chilled out guy, if that's not good enough for you, then I'm afraid perhaps we should look at other things here. You should look at other providers. Somebody you can hassle, somebody you can drop a daily email to, somebody you can annoy or whatnot. I dislike losing you as a customer, but at the same time I can't and I don't want to have this negative energy in my life, really. And I said to him, well, to put it in perspective, you're having sleepless nights and you think it's worth the amount of effort and anger to worry about a 9x9 pixel green icon in front of your URL on a website that is perfectly working from where I'm standing. You know, he wanted to launch it to clients, and with or without the extended validation certificate, there was a certificate on there, perfectly launchable, that website. And I said to him, I'm putting this into perspective as to what's important to you, what's important to me. Look, I've just survived cancer, and I'm having the first vacation in 6 years, you know, with my wife inside the US. The first time I'm actually able to go on a trip like that. I'm happy to be alive, you know, and that's what's important to me. I really don't want to be hassled by somebody every day about things that are comparatively petty, you know, first world problems that really don't mean much to me anymore. Your website works, awesome, let's rejoice. You know, that's where I'm coming from. Let's look at the positive things here rather than the negative and the stuff we could improve and the stuff that isn't quite right. Who cares if it's perfect or not? You know, it'll get there eventually. And today it's not the case, no matter how many emails or phone calls we make. And he really took that to heart and is now finding another hosting provider. So I'm thinking, the reason why I'm telling you this is that sometimes it's important, and this is going back to the Kim story from earlier, sometimes it's important for us to look at how do we want to deal with a certain circumstance. We can either change our attitude towards it, towards a situation, towards a circumstance, and say, okay, I've found a different way of looking at it, and hence it's now working for me mentally. Or if that's not the case, we must leave the situation, or we must change the situation. We must do something that changes the situation so that our way of feeling in that situation is working again. And that's the most important thing. And I think that's what I really want to bring home to you, that it is important, it is up to us to make sure that we're all right. I mean, go back to stewardesses. They tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first before worrying about everybody else. So it's very important. It's kind of the same principle. Make sure you're okay. And if you're not, then there's really only two options. You find a different way of looking at the situation, or you change the situation. And that's either you take yourself out of the situation, or you remove whatever obstacle there currently is from the situation. So that's my little pep talk for you today. And for Kim, this was something very positive, and all she needed to do was sit and look inwards and say, okay, I need a bit of time for myself, rather than just focusing on one thing, i.e. the job, and feel worse for it, and then to the point maybe that I won't be able to do my job anymore. And for me, it was letting that customer go. And that was important because now I can sleep again, you know, I can breathe easy, and I feel I've done the right thing. Him and I, we were just not aligned, and I think he'll be better off with a different hosting provider and a green bar certificate if he so desires. And I can now get on with my life, and I'm happy, and you know, I'm open to other things. Yeah, sometimes we just need to close something off and make room for something else. And now I'm going to grab a coffee here before I'm going to go to work. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.